Welcome. Today we've got video 13. Our goal for today, given an inequality, you will be able to solve, graph on a number line, and write in interval notation. So this is going to be something a little new for today. So let's go ahead and let's review what an inequality is. Now, an inequality is when you have not one solution, but you have a range of solutions. So if we take a look here at our very first example, we have n. Now we have this symbol, this is less than 2. So n is less than 2. Now we know it's less than because when your inequality is opening up away from the variable, that means the number is bigger and the variable is less. I always like to think about it as it's a cookie monster. It's always going to be eating the bigger of the number. So n has to be less than 2 because you're eating the 2. So on the flip side here, your inequality is opening towards the n. So now n is greater than 2. Okay, so next up, now we're going to change it just a little bit and we're going to put that line underneath. Now it is n is less than or equal to 2. And then the other one, n, now we're opening up towards the n. So it's greater than, the line underneath means or equal to 2. Okay, so that's how we read our inequality. So it's all numbers, okay, that are greater than or less than or equal to. All right, so let's take a look first. We have what's called set notation. So set notation means it's going to be in brackets, and we read it as n. This little line here means the words such that. So n, such that n is less than or equal to -4. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at how to graph it. So here, if we have a greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, so if you have the little lines underneath, that means you're going to use a closed dot. So it's going to be a circle and it's going to be shaded in. If you have less than or greater than, and there's no line underneath, you're going to use an open dot. It's going to be like this. So if we take a look here, this is n is less than or equal to -4. So the first thing I'm going to do, since -4 is my number there, I'm going to put -4. And now I'm going to put numbers on my number line so that way I go positive and negative. So this way it's going to be towards -infinity. So -5, -6, -7, -8. And this way it's going to be towards positive infinity. So -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so we're going to go above the -4 and we're going to put a circle there. Now we have to decide if we're going to leave that open or shaded in. Here, since there's a line underneath, that means we shade it in. Now n is less than or equal to 4. That means n has to be less than -4. Which would be towards -infinity. So we would shade it in just like that. Okay, now that we've graphed it, now we can take a look at interval notation. So for interval notation, we're going to say that your answer has to be between these values. So in order to do that, we're going to use parentheses if we do not include the value, which means it's less than and greater than. We're going to use brackets, the square brackets, if we do include the value. So for instance, greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. So let's take a look here. So we know that if we take a look here, our arrow is going towards -infinity. So my answer is going to be between -infinity and this answer, it stops here at -4. Now let's think. Can I ever get to -infinity? No, we can never get there, so we can't include it. So that means we put a parenthesis around -infinity. Now -4, can my answer be equal to -4? Well, yes, it's a closed dot. So yes, it can, so that gets a bracket. So this means your answer is between -infinity and -4, but it cannot be equal to -infinity. It can be equal to -4. Okay, let's try another one. So if we take a look at this, this is what we call a compound inequality because this is n such that n is going to be in between -3 and 5. So this, we would read this as -3 is less than n, which is less than or equal to 5. So if we want to graph it, I have to make sure that I hit -3. So I'm going to start and go -4, -3. Let's see if it'll fit. 2, -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good, it'll fit. So let's go ahead. -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now above the -3, we're going to go above it, and we're going to put a circle. Now we have to decide, are we going to fill that in? Well, there's no line, so no fill. Then we go, and our second number is 5, so I go above the 5. This time I put a circle, so if we take a look, now we can be equal to, there's a line, so we fill it in. Now n is in the middle, n is between, so we go and we put our line for in between. Now for interval notation, so if we take a look here, we have a circle above the -3. Okay, and we have a dot above the 5, so my answer is between -3 and 5. Now, can -3 be included? It's an open dot, so it gets a parenthesis. Are we allowed to include the 5? Well, it's a closed dot, so yes, it gets a bracket. Okay, so now that we know how to graph and we know our interval notation, let's go ahead and let's try solving and then graphing and filling in our interval notation. Okay, so let's take a look here at number 1. So first we're going to solve, then we're going to graph the inequality, and then we're going to state it in interval notation. So if I take a look here, the first thing we have to do is solve. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. We then get 4x is less than 20. I then divide both sides by 4. So then x is less than 5. Now I'm going to go ahead, we solved that. I'm going to put it in set notation. So I'm going to write x such that x is less than 5. Okay, so that was part A. Now part B, we're going to put this on a number line. So I'm going to go ahead on my number line. 5 is my number. I'm going to put that in the middle. 6, 7, 4, 3, and 2. Now I'm going to go above the 5, and I'm going to put my dot. So above the 5, we get a dot. Now we need to think, do I want to keep that open or fill it in? Well, there's no line, so no fill, and it's x. Now the inequality is opening towards the 5, so x has to be less than 5. So we go this way, and we've graphed it. Okay, so now for part C, we have to do our interval notation. So if I take a look here, we have an arrow. So the arrow means it's going to keep going that way forever. And if I keep going this way forever, that's negative infinity. So my answer is between negative infinity and 5. Now, negative infinity is a number we'll never be able to get to, so that gets a parenthesis. And the 5 is an open dot, so that also gets a parenthesis. And we've got it. Okay, let's take a look then at number 2. So the first thing we have to do here is solve. So I'm going to subtract 6. And then we get -2 is greater, -2x is greater than or equal to 6. Now we're going to divide by -2. Divide by -2. And then error, error, error. We have to remember, when we divide by a negative, I repeat, when you divide by a negative, right here, we're dividing by a negative, you have to take this inequality symbol and we have to flip it. So we don't like to divide by negative. So instead of greater than or equal to, now it becomes less than or equal to. -2 divided by -2, we get x. Over here, 6 divided by -3, we're going to get -2, we get -3. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and put that into set notation. And we've got part A. Okay, so when you divide by a negative, you have to flip or switch that inequality symbol. Okay, now that we've got part A, let's go ahead and take a look at part B. So now we have to graph it. So here's my number line. I'm going to put -3, -2, -1, -4, -5. So I'm going to go above the -3, put my circle. Now I'm going to look, do we have to fill it in or keep it open? Well, there's a line underneath, so we have to fill it in. All right, and then we're going to go x is less than, so it's opening towards the -3, so we have to go less than, so it goes this way. All right, so for part C now, interval notation. The first thing I'm going to do is I start at the left, and here we have an arrow that's pointing, so that's -infinity. And here we have a dot above the -3. Now -infinity, we can never get there, so we do a parenthesis. And then -3 is a dot that's filled in, so that gets a bracket. All right, so let's go ahead then, and I'd like you to go ahead and solve for x in number 3. All right, let's go ahead and take a look here. So you distributed, we transpose the x, we transpose the constant, and then error, error, error. Did you divide by a negative? So flip that inequality symbol. All right, so now we've got x is greater than or equal to 4, and we're going to go ahead and put that in our set notation. So there is part A. Part B, we're going to draw this on a number line. So here's my number line. This is part B. I'm going to put 4 in the middle, 5, 6, 3, 2, and 1. So I'm going to go above the 4. I'm going to put a circle. Now I had to decide, do we want to fill that in? Yes, we do, because it's greater than or equal to. And again, x, we're opening towards the x, so the x is bigger, so I have to shade towards the bigger numbers. And now we have, so there's my arrow, we've got it. So for part C, now we have to do interval notation. So let's take a look at where we drew our graph here. So we started above the 4. And this time our arrow goes to +infinity. Now the 4 is shaded in, so that gets a bracket. Now infinity is a number you can never really get to, so that gets a parenthesis, and we've got our answer. Okay, we're going to go ahead, we're going to skip number 4, and we're going to flip to the back. Okay, so let's take a look now at number 5. The smallest integer of the solution set, 2x minus 5 is greater than 35 is. All right, so this is multiple choice. So what we want to do is we want to solve for x first. So I'm going to add 5. So 2x is greater than 40. So then x has to be greater than, we're going to divide by 2, 20. Now careful, x has to be greater than 20. So is x allowed to be equal to 20? Nope, it has to be greater than. So what's the smallest integer that it could be? It would be 21, which would be choice C. Okay, next up, let's go take a look at number 6. Given 2x plus ax minus 7 is greater than -12, determine the largest integer value of a when x equals -1. So we're solving for a, and x equals -1. So I'm going to take -1, and I'm going to plug it in to my x's. So let's go ahead and try that out. So 2 times -1 plus a times -1 minus 7 is greater than -12. So here we're going to get, we multiply -2. A times -1 is -a. Minus 7 is greater than -12. I can combine my like terms, so -a minus 9 is greater than -12. I add 9. So -a is greater than -3. And then we have to divide by -1, divide by -1, and then error, error. All right, once again, we're dividing by a negative. So we have to take this inequality symbol and we need to reverse it. So here it's greater than, now it's less than. So a is less than, -3 divided by -1 is 3. So that means a has to be less than 3. So is a allowed to be equal to 3? No. So that means a has to be less than 3, so it could be 2, 1, 0, -1, -2. So which one would it be? So the largest integer it could ever be is 2. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all about your inequalities. You now know how to solve, graph, and write it in interval notation.